Welcome along to the Eversaline podcast. I'm Matt Sims, and this is where we get into the real stuff that drive great leadership, high performance, and a thriving culture of continuous improvement. I chat openly and honestly with people who've been there and done it. The kind of leaders who create real impact, not just in numbers, but in the way their teams think, feel, and perform. If you're after honest insights, practical ideas, and conversations that challenge the way we lead, you're in the right place, because where people thrive, performance follows.
The Eversaline podcast with Matt Sims. Because where people thrive, performance follows.
Hello and welcome back to the Eversaline podcast, where we're going to be talking about scaling improvement. It's a huge issue for lots of organizations. I've seen organizations that have done this really, really well. And equally, I've seen organizations that have really struggled when it comes to upping the game and expanding and making things spread across the organization. Sometimes it works in smaller areas, and then you try and roll it out elsewhere and it stalls or it falls over. So we're going to get into the weeds of that, what works, what doesn't. But we're going to speak about a really cool software platform that's available out there now called OPEX. And we're also going to touch on a conference and awards from the Lean Competency System that's coming up on the 23rd of September in Manchester. And to join me, who better than the man himself, CEO, I've lost it already, look, I've lost my page. Unbelievable. There we go, CEO of the Reinvigoration Group. It's Chris Dando. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so have I, and I've messed it up already, so it's a good start for you because you could only be better now.
No pressure.
Tell us a little bit about your career then, Chris, because you've got quite the journey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take you back to the start. So, I guess a bit of an orthodox start. Didn't kind of go down the academic route. I decided, as a 17-year-old that I was going to kind of make waves in my own way. So, I jacked in my A levels halfway through at school, even though I was pretty academic. Much to the sort of dismay of my parents in year one. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go out and make my way in the world. So, I went into work, and, shortly after that, initial sort of decision, I joined, an insurance company, and started working in the operational team. So I had a headset on, not too dissimilar to the one you're wearing at the moment. And I answered calls in a call center. So, that was the start of it. And, actually I worked for that business. It was Lloyd's Bank Insurance. I worked for that business for 9 years and kind of worked my way up the ranks through operations. So sort of leading teams and then leading operations, and kind of got a bit sort of bored with that after a few years, and, made a bit of a sideways move and got into kind of change and transformation. I just loved the pace and variety of work. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I discovered Lean at that point in time. So just in the sort of 10 years into my career. And when I discovered Lean, the light bulbs went on, and I realized all of the mistakes that I made as an operational leader. So I had that sort of, feelings of sort of, shame and a bit of humiliation in terms of some of the things I used to do. But I only knew what I knew, right? I learned off my boss, and that's how things were. And I did a master's degree in lean service operations out of Cardiff Business School.
Wow.
And that's where I met a guy called Ryan King, and we co-founded Reinvigoration as it was then. I'll talk a little bit more about that now, but it was the start really of my career in earnest. I absolutely loved going into organizations and helping them change and transform. I loved seeing the light bulbs going on for other individuals based on kind of what I was teaching them in the same way that it happened for me. And that's kind of where really kind of Reinvigoration came from. Ryan and I co-founded the business, translating lean from manufacturing into service environments. And this is 20 years ago almost. And we grew a great business and had lots of fun, worked with lots of brilliant organizations. I've been lucky enough to work in probably 250 different businesses now across the world, across lots of industries. So I've seen a lot, I've done a lot. Organizations that are like completely immature and don't know what their first steps are, through to organizations that have been doing it for 20, 30 years and they look optimize around the edges, and everything in between. So yeah, been privileged to kind of partner with lots of businesses, which has been great fun. The business as it stands today has changed. So in the last 3 years, we've become a group of companies. So the core consulting and training business, Reinvigoration, still exists. We decided that we would build a software product to help organizations to shape and scale improvement, and that's called OpEx. And then the kind of full circle moment, which I'm really proud of, was taking sort of the baton over for the LCS. So the LCS came out of Cardiff Business School. That's where we learned this stuff and got inspired. That's where we met. So to have the opportunity to take the LCS to the next phase of its journey and really kind of grow that business globally, I couldn't wait to do that. So, we managed to make that happen nearly 3 years ago now. And that business is
that long ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's time's gone fast. So that business is growing and we're enabling others to kind of learn what we learned and benefit from it, but on a global scale. So pretty exciting. So Reinvigoration Group, as we are now, 3 businesses, all linked to kind of lean and improvement. So I'm super proud of what we've created and where we're going.
You've done a lot. There's so much to unpick there. Where do I start? I think moving lean from manufacturing into other industries 20 years ago, you're probably ahead of the curve there because it didn't happen, did it?
No, it didn't. And do you know what? The sort of master's degree that we got accepted on was the first time anywhere in the world that a lean service master's was offered, right? So we were like so lucky from a timing point of view because it was just starting to happen. But we had literally the world's leading authorities teaching us for 2 years.
Wow.
It was incredible, right? It was incredible. And, what was happening at that time, obviously a lot of good lean manufacturing consultants out there, but they really didn't get service. And they were trying to apply an approach that was built for a tangible environment. Where I can see stock building up, where I can truly measure, variation quite scientifically. They were trying to apply that to people-centric businesses and processes, and it doesn't translate in that way. Because services are very different. They're intangible by their nature. Variation is inherent because it's people, right? So yes, you can try and reduce that, but can you control it in the way that you can a machine? Absolutely not. And there are many other examples, but because of the education that we had and the grounding, we were like so ahead of the curve. And when we started talking the language that we learned, people were like, yeah, actually that makes sense. And that's how things got going for us.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really good, really good. I've been doing a lot of stuff over the last couple of years with hospitality. Yeah. And it's been amazing, like translating the traditional lean tools into hospitality language, examples, and seeing them run with it. Because you're right, it is so applicable. It's people working processes.
And do you know what's interesting? So people have often asked me, so how, like you go into all of these different types of businesses that, I'm from financial services, right? So how can I go into, an airline or, a local authority with is, waste processing, whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter. How do you do that? And like, for me, it comes back to some simple principles. So, these service businesses exist to fulfill a purpose, right? So they serve customers for a reason. So understanding the purpose of that service is the starting point. And once you understand that, and the people that are doing the work tell you that, right? What are you actually here to do? Right? They can tell you that and they can explain it pretty easily. And leaders often overcomplicate it, but like, what's the purpose of the service? And then how have we designed ourselves to deliver that in the best way? Right? You just peel it back, keep it simple. And when people start to think like that, they go, well, actually, why are we doing this, and this? Because that doesn't help us fulfill the purpose. That gets in the way. And that's when kind of lean happens from the bottom up. So, it's as simple as that, right? That's how we do it.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. People overcomplicate it. And when you strip it back, it is really simple to start to identify where you need to go.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else. Did you know about 3 years ago, I just left Amazon, right? And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. Have you heard this? Do you know this?
I don't know this story now.
Okay. I thought you might have been prepared. I applied. You had an advert online for working for you guys as a consultant.
Yeah.
I applied for the role and I failed the test.
Okay.
You had like an online test. I'm terrible at tests, right? I just can't work in a test environment. You could test me on what I had for dinner last night. And in an exam environment, I would fail because I just can't do it when the time was going. Anyway, I failed and I didn't get through. So I went back and I challenged it. And I was like, look, I know I failed the test, but these are my credentials. These are what I've done. This is all the evidence that I can do what I'm talking about. I'm just not very good at exams. And they were like, no, sorry, this is our system. This is how it works.
There we go. Well, there we go. A bit of rigidity in the process. You know what, though, Matt? Seriously, I remember when that recruitment process was put in place, and it was just to, to help with the burden of what was becoming we get hundreds of applications for it. So, we tried something and we had similar feedback from other people. So it looks a bit different today. There's still a bit of automation stuff, but, we've put in place something slightly different, right? To get to know people.
Yeah. Well, the value of that story is not only did you create all of those wonderful businesses that you're talking about, you had a hand in creating Ever So Lean. Because if I hadn't have failed that test, I would never have gone on to do what I'm doing. So.
Well, there we go, sliding doors, right? This is
yes, right. Yeah. So the influence you have beyond your knowledge is amazing.
Well, I didn't know that story, and I appreciate you telling me that.
One that got away.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people actually will be able to relate to your story. Because so many people that I come across who work in the continuous improvement environment have come from a background where they've just walked out of school and education because they've struggled in some way. You didn't. You were actually really good at it. But others struggled. I struggled, but I found lean and the framework and the able to do things, try it with your hands, test it, and then follow a structure. Lots of people connect with that because it gives them that mechanism to be able to move forward. And it sounds like you did exactly the same.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know, it's so interesting. So I've got my own children, right? So, and it's interesting watching their journey and how the educational system in the UK is still as rigid and fixed as it was. They're learning the same things, and I'm like, oh my word, this is not going to serve you any purpose in life. But I've got 3 boys. One's 19, he's working, 16 and 15, and and they're having the same conversations with me. They're like, what's this all for? We don't really want to go to university. We want to learn and broaden our sort of perspectives, but like, what's it all for? And it's just really interesting, the conversations that I have with them, because I feel that the educational system in the UK is not fit for purpose anymore. It's a predefined rigid conveyor belt that actually doesn't achieve what it did maybe 20 years ago, when doing a degree was maybe a bit more uncommon and was an accelerator. So for me, any type of hands-on type work alongside education is a far better option. And that's kind of what I'm sort of advocating for my boys.
Yeah, I completely agree. We home educate our kids because we feel that the system doesn't reflect modern day.
There you go.
And it suppresses certain learning types.
Yeah,
so my 100%. Kids, they're autistic, but they're not diagnosed, 2 of them. And they can't learn by sitting there, having someone a blackboard or a whiteboard or whatever they use now.
Yeah.
Blackboard in my day. They don't digest the information from it being written up there, and then they're told to regurgitate it in an exam at the end. Their brains don't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see, like, how often do we see that, right? The stories that you hear about, some of the best entrepreneurs in the world failed the educational system, right? It's a story that's repeated time and time again, and there's a reason for that.
So true. I always thought that I failed school. I thought I was not good enough. And it's only now, sitting here sort of approaching my mid-40s, that I realise that the system failed me.
Yeah.
I didn't fail it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's get over the negative side, right? We've put the world to rights. Let's talk about what you've currently got going on within all of the pies that you are baking.
Yeah, okay, where do I start? Because there's a lot going on. So, running a business, is full of ups and downs. We're approaching kind of 2 decades. So we've weathered a few storms in that. And, what I've learned is you just have to be kind of agile, right? And agility gives you resilience ultimately. Okay. And we make mistakes all of the time. And that's the other thing. Don't worry about that. Just learn from it and try not to do it again. So, there's some kind of, I guess, underpinning things that we think and believe. But, I'm really delighted with how things are going. All 3 businesses are growing, which is brilliant. And in different ways, right? And it's taken us time to mature the businesses, and they are very different, and they need different things in terms of skills, and the people, in terms of sort of strategies to market them. They're all very different, right? But yeah, let me give you just a bit of a flavor, right? So the consulting business, first of all, kind of where it all started. The team is growing significantly, and we've made some fantastic hires over over the last few years, it's a highly, highly capable team, right? And, we've got an amazing culture across the whole group. But in that team, they're hungry for learning from each other and from clients. And, they get their kicks out of making change happen. And they're a certain type of person, right? So consultancies often have a negative reputation, and often that's really well earned. But when we set the business up, we decided to do things differently. I had exposure. I worked for a big global consultancy for a year, and I was just like, no, we can do this in a better way. Have people first, and I mean colleagues, those that are working for you, but also clients, do the right thing by clients. And to this day, that's what happens. So we've got an incredibly gifted team. They're going out there and doing that and knowing that they can make decisions for clients that might be not the right thing for the business, right? If you're going to be selfish, but that's what we want them to do. So, we're delivering some exciting stuff across the world, and, always looking for more challenging problems to partner with clients on. And that's happening more and more. So yeah, really excited about kind of, what Reinvigoration is doing, and the fact that it's not lost those early roots. That's really important to me.
And that's a challenge as you scale, isn't it? Keeping that identity.
Yeah, totally. Look, we talked about that kind of recruitment process that you experienced 3 years ago, right? Which probably didn't give you a good impression. We've worked so hard on that kind of colleague journey end to end. And Leanne, my head of people, manages that, and she's fantastic, right? At making sure that, our culture sticks and that it's a cultural fit first before anything else. That underpins everything that we do across the group, right? So, the Reinvig is led by David Hobbs, who joined us, not quite 2 years ago. And he's got the reins and he's driving it, and it's exciting to see it. LCS, who coming up to 3 years, it'll be 3 years in October. Katrin, who we hired about 2 years ago, also is leading, actually just over 2 years ago, is leading LCS. And, I know Kat well, her energy and passion for all things lean.
Incredible.
And actually Kat doesn't have a traditional lean background. She's worked in business. She's done a number of different roles. She had her own business, so she's kind of got it without knowing what it was. But her kind of drive and enthusiasm and vision, right, is really stamping its mark on the LCS. And, that team is taking LCS global. Obviously LCS has been around for 20, 25 years now, but it's had a relatively European based footprint. We're trying to change that. So, it's brilliant to see what's happening there. And we've just built some amazing tech to bolster the integrity of the LCS. And we're building this really, really kind of deep community moat around the LCS, because it's there, right? People have the recognition that certification gives them, but then it kind of ends once they've been given the certificate. And we want to change that, right? We want them to be part of something that can shape their careers into the future, whether they leave their current employer or not, right? So, so some exciting stuff going on there. And, we've got the second sort of annual conference and awards coming up in September, as you mentioned at the start. So again, last year was sort of dipping our toe into that, and it went well. This year's going to be bigger and better, as you'd expect. And, so excited to see what that becomes in the future. I'm sure it'll probably end up going international.
Talking of international, what was brilliant at the first awards was the amount of people that had come from overseas. There were quite a few people members of teams that had come from overseas. Some of the entries were projects that had been done in Australia. Yeah. It was incredible.
And honestly, the same again this year. So I know that there are lots of people flying in, some that have been shortlisted for awards, some that are just coming for the conference because they want to meet people in the community. Like, it's just amazing to see, right? It's
awesome.
The power of a community. LCS.
It's awesome. And I was fortunate enough to be a judge for this year's awards, and the quality of the entries was just outstanding. Some of them were I would literally sit there just staring at it thinking, how am I going to pick between these? Just so good. And I'm looking at them thinking, how do I pick? It's just so difficult because people are doing some wonderful things.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? And this is what, this is the thing that I love the most, right? So the LCS has never done an awards before, so this is year 2. But if you think about the whole history of 25 years of people delivering powerful improvement, and they've not had a platform to showcase what they've done. And we want to give people a platform for the amazing work that they're doing. And that was one of the reasons why, Kat and I said, look, we've got to do something here to kind of create that for people. I remember when I delivered my first sort of Greenbelt project, I was so proud of it. Yeah. My boss gave me kudos for it, and that was it. It was then parked and on you go. But there was no real recognition, but I believe that people should be, rewarded and recognized for their efforts.
Absolutely. And others can learn from it then as well within the community.
Of course. Yeah.
It's been great. I've got, as you said before, I've got a strong relationship with LCS. I think Kat had just joined when I started working with LCS. So I don't really know it before, but I can already see the impact that Kat has made over that period of time. Like the difference in that 2 years is remarkable.
Yeah. And what's so interesting, so, the LCS came out of some of the best lean research that was around, right, 25 years ago, out of the Lean Enterprise Research Center. It was Europe's leading body. All of the best guys were there. They're the ones that Ryan and I learned off, right? We were so lucky, as I said earlier. And unfortunately, the classic kind of happened in the university. There were cuts and they decided to can this research center. But the guy that ran that research center, Simon Elias, I got to give him a massive shout out because he could see what they developed and actually the impact that it was starting to have in those early days on a small scale. So he spun the LCS out of the university with the partnership agreement and ran it for 10 years and proved that actually this has got legs, and it's, more than that, it's adding value to people, and to businesses. And then as Simon came to retire, we were kind of, a natural kind of fit really to kind of take the baton. We obviously came out of the same school. We learned the same stuff, and, we wanted to kind of continue the journey, but make it a bit bigger. Right. So that's what's been happening.
One of the things because I offer the LCS accreditations through Ever So Lean. Yeah. And one of the things that I find is really popular with clients is that it's not a rigid curriculum. It's able to be flexible to that organization. So if there's certain organizations that want to focus heavily in one area, we can do it. We don't have to say, I'm really sorry, that day 2 is all about looking at statistical analysis, so we can't adapt it. We're able to adapt it and make it fit. And I think that's what people want in the modern day.
Totally. And the power of improvement for me is in pragmatism. Right. So, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And therefore, how might we go about that rather than going, I'm going to come and do a domain project. What's the problem? Do you see what I mean? So and again, back to the kind of the earlier conversation around lean manufacturing consultants trying to do what they did in manufacturing service. It doesn't work. Because the problems are different and therefore the approach has to be different. The LCS is amazing because it's a framework. So it's a framework built on some unbelievably powerful research, but it accepts that each business is different. And actually our styles of learning, to your earlier point, talking about your children, are different. So why would you force a single approach? It doesn't work. So it's amazing. It ticks all the boxes for me.
It's really good. And those awards that you mentioned before, so they're taking place on the 23rd of September.
They are indeed up in Manchester. So funny enough, yesterday I just had a chat to the team and said, how are things going? And they're way ahead of where we were last year. It's going to be, probably twice the size of last year, which is brilliant. So all of those people coming together to network and share experience and, build their own networks, right? Because that's the other really important thing here. We want the LCS to just be a conduit for people to connect. Okay. And then we can step away and let people do what they need to do. Right. That's powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. And if people want to come along, so it's a conference during the day where you got a number of speakers that are delivering different subjects. And then in the evening is the more formal awards part. Can anyone come, or do you need to be a member?
No, anyone can come. Anyone can come. So, as you'd expect, the majority of people that come in are sort of LCS sort of member organizations. But anyone that's interested in improvement, wants to be in a room to learn from people that are doing amazing things across different industries across the world. It's a massively enriching learning experience. So you can come and have a ticket just for the day, or just for the night, if you just want to kind of, come a party and have a great meal and some drinks in a social environment, or, come for the whole amount, you're welcome, whoever you are, whatever your background is.
And there's lots of opportunity throughout the day, as it was last year, for people to sort of interact and network in an informal setting as well. Exactly. So it's not like you're constantly in a room. So it's nice that you get to do that.
And that's the power of it, right? So bringing people together is back to this connection point. So yes, we want to learn, and there's some structure to that. But you learn as much, stood over a coffee table, just chatting to someone about, what are you up to then? How's your journey been to date? What have you, you learn so much in those conversations. Yeah. So yeah, the day has been deliberately structured to make sure there are plenty of those opportunities for people to connect and, share details and do what they need to then outside of that setting.
And where do folks go if they want to have a look at the tickets and stuff like that? Where do they get them from?
Yeah, so on the LCS website, so leancompetency.org, you'll see it there as a banner. Awards, a conference. Yeah, all the details you need are there.
Awesome. Get ready for like a mass onslaught now of people coming in for tickets.
Absolutely.
Might have to change the venue.
And then Matt, the other so I talked about Reinvig and LCS, and I haven't sort of spoke about what's going on in OpEx yet, so I'll kind of bring people up to speed on that. So
this is exciting.
OpEx is exciting, and the reason why that product was built, so it was a spin out of Reinvigoration. And it was about 4 years ago, we were sat there thinking, what can we do here that's a bit of a challenger to the consulting space, to our own business? And we kicked around some thoughts, right? So consultancy, so I mentioned earlier, they often get a bad rep, and not all consultants are like that. We certainly aren't, I would say that. But, what are the typical characteristics of consultants, right? So, obviously you've got big blocks of time, day rate plus expenses. You often get the senior experienced people having those initial conversations with you, and then get resource with people that are kind of cutting their teeth on your business, right? That's a traditional model. The consultancy will always say, we'll build your capability and make you self-sufficient, but actually they tend to try and create reliance, right? So, all of that secret sauce, the IP, the way that we do things is kind of closely guarded. You can have the keys, but it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? So, they're just some of the characteristics. And as I mentioned, they don't apply to all consultancies. I am generalizing, but whenever I tell that story, people smile because they recognize it.
Yeah, I was doing the same. I was thinking, exactly. Oh yeah,
exactly. And I don't mind saying that as it is. I'm a consultant, right? So anyway, given the other characteristics, we said, what if we were to build something that literally flipped every single one of those on its head? Okay, so our expertise is operations improvement, right? So what if we were to, create a product that actually gave the keys from day one? And what if that product was, based on, a very, very low relative subscription, right? So you haven't got to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a big block of time, but you can have access to all of our IP, everything that we've learned and built through nearly 20 years of making this stuff work across the world. What if we gave you all of that at a price point, which is just like, really? And what if we kind of made sure that product was focused on truly building your skills through rich multimedia learning with all of the assets you could ever possibly need? And then what if that product actually then provided you with a way of evidencing the link between learning stuff and moving the business needle and making change happen? So that's where OpEx came from.
Still to come on the Ever So Lean podcast.
Yeah, the consultancy will always say, we'll build your capability and make you self-sufficient, but actually they tend to try and create reliance. It's relatively easy to get some early wins with improvement. Guess what? We made loads of mistakes and spent way too much money building things that didn't work. What we've now developed is the operating system for continuous improvement. They can't cope with the scale. Improvement teams are often the ones to get the job. And that just shows me how misunderstood they are, but also that they haven't set themselves up for success because they're seen as a cost.
I'm winging it here.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you ready to elevate your team's ways of working? Are you seeking fresh insights and growth opportunities? Our experts will assess your team's practices, providing valuable insights for improvement and celebration. Reward and recognise your team with this certification tailored specifically for creating an improvement culture. The BQF Academy accreditation acknowledges your journey, outstanding outcomes, and future plans. Whether you utilize Lean, Six Sigma, project management, or continuous improvement techniques, this certification celebrates your incredible work and positive impact. Propel your team's performance to new heights with the BQF Team Excellence Culture Certification. Visit www.bqf.org.uk today and let's celebrate your success together.
13-time Shingo Prize winner Dr. Jeffrey Leiker and Toyota Kata author Mike Rother have created the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata online course. This inexpensive, compact program is designed to transform your thinking and approach, making you a highly skilled learner and coach. Engage in deliberate practice to turbocharge your progress. You also get lifetime access to the materials, including all of the bonus interviews. Why pay up to 10 times the price elsewhere, listening to some consultant, when you can gain direct insights from the masters themselves? Skip the rest and go with the best. Join us today and embark on your journey to excellence. Just click on the link below to start your journey.
Want to take your leadership, team performance, and business transformation to the next level? Then it's time to think differently. With lean thinking and a people-centric focus, we reshape the way people think, lead, and perform. Because where people thrive, performance follows. Visit www.eversolean.com.
So, great idea. A load of consultants with an idea decided to build a software business. Guess what? We made loads of mistakes and spent way too much money building things that didn't work and then did. And all of that is the podcast in its own right on the whole journey. Where are we today? Well, we built OpEx, and the product has evolved massively, particularly in the last sort of 9 months. And we built a product that kind of does all of those things that I've described, but actually the more recent evolutions takes it to another level. So what we've now developed is the operating system for continuous improvement. Okay. So if you think about CI literally as infrastructure in the same way that you would have Windows on your laptop, right? That's what we developed for continuous improvement. So literally top to bottom facilitation of anything that you can imagine, and it is unbelievable actually what the team have evolved that initial vision into. So it's really exciting, and as soon as we show it to people, they go, "Oh, right, I get it. How do I get this in my business?" And so yeah, we're on an incredibly exciting journey there. It's taken years to kind of find the thing.
Yeah.
OpEx is led by Leon Hardwick, who joined us 3 years ago, and he's a software guy, right? So I brought Leon in because we were thinking as kind of technical consultants, not as software people. So what we've now developed is a software business that's run like a software business, but has the expertise of our consulting knowledge baked in, right? Partly through the team and partly through the design. So we've hit the sweet spot with it, and it's growing rapidly across the world. So we've got, clients in the US, in the Middle East, loads across Europe. We're having so many amazing conversations. But it's not just about a product. It's about actually what outcomes are you trying to achieve in your business? What are the problems that are stopping you from getting there? So it's a consultative approach. And, some of the answers, some formal learning, some of the answers, the product OpEx that we built. Some of it is actually need a bit of sleeves rolled up consultancy to get some stuff done. So we've created this business that's delivering those things. And what's left behind is OpEx, the operating system for improvement. And that's what facilitates what these organizations need to do forever into the future, hopefully.
I've seen it working, actually. I delivered a yellow belt cohort for Nugent up in the northwest of the UK.
Yeah.
And they've been on a trial on it, I believe. Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time. So I'd already arranged for this conversation with you. And we were on day one, halfway through the day, and I was talking about Kaizen project charters and stuff like that. And I was going through the old formal document that you would normally use. And they were like, "Oh, no, actually, can we just show you something?" And they shared their screen on the big screen and opened up OpEx. They're like, "Oh, we're going to use this." And I was like, that is unbelievable. I hadn't seen it. And they took me through it. And what really struck me with it was how simple it was to use as well. Yeah. These folks had not done much in the way of continuous improvement before.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, are they going to get lost within it? But they were flying around it. It was so easy.
Yeah. And this is the thing, right? So, we're talking today about kind of scale and improvement, and you'll know from your experience, I've seen it time and time again, that it's relatively easy to get some early wins with improvement, right? So you teach some people the tools and a methodology, you fire them out a problem and you guide them, using your kind of coaching expertise, and they deliver some brilliant stuff, and like everyone's revved up and they go, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the leadership go, brilliant. Okay, let's now roll that out across the rest of the site. And you've got this energy and, it's pretty well controlled and you've got some experts that are facilitating. Fantastic. When they then go to site 2, site 3, site 50, it just falls apart. And it falls apart because it's reliant on a small number of experts that are literally the glue, and they can't cope with the scale. Okay. And the business can't cope with the added cost of adding more experts, right? So suddenly it just grinds to a halt. So, one of the core problems that OpEx solves is that scalability challenge because of the design of the tech and the efficiency that you can drive improvement. It gives your small number of experts a lot of leverage to be able to deal with more and more and more people. So that's one of the key problems that it solves. And there's a load of other cool stuff in there around, there's AI checking your work and all of this sort of stuff. So something that you or I might need to do, check this problem statement and give them some coaching. AI can do it, right? Because there's a method for writing a good problem statement. So that's one less thing that we've got to do. So we can then support them with a senior leader conversation or something, right? So it's using intelligence and clever tech to underpin the acceleration of improvement.
So good. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm winging it here, I believe it's got the LCS learning path. You can build it into it.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you'd expect, all of the learning that we've ever delivered across from Reinvig and is LCS accredited. It was the first thing that we did, actually. And so, whatever, 16th year or whatever. So we know the learning paths, they're powerful. So we codified all of that into OpEx. So that comes out of the box if you want it. But of course, if you've got your own, that's fine. Pop your own in or augment the two, not a problem. So It's just an accelerator, a massive accelerator. And the other exciting thing about it when we're talking about scaling CI, I talked about kind of one of the reasons there why CI kind of starts to falter. We don't have enough experts to scale. One of the other big reasons is that at some point, someone senior asks some difficult questions around, show me what impact this improvement that we've been investing in has. And it sounds like the easiest question to answer, but it's actually one of the most difficult because, often we don't have a structured way of capturing impact. People do it differently. So you suddenly get your kind of head of CI, director of OpEx, whoever that person is, trying to justify their own existence because they can't answer the question quickly. And guess what happens when redundancy rounds come around?
Yeah.
And honestly, I spoke about this in a LinkedIn post about 6 weeks ago. It astounds me that the improvement teams are often the ones to get the job. And that just shows me how misunderstood they are, but also that they haven't set themselves up for success because they're seen as a cost, and an overhead, not as an enabler of, helping this business to grow and deliver the strategy. And that's a big problem. So OpEx supports that, right? And it's just so rich with data, and your execs can log in and get a dash. Like, you name it, it does it. We've really thought about this.
I often joke that continuous improvement is the only role in the world where you have to justify your existence every single day.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's always the first to go. And I've worked in organizations where we've got it right in the model plant, in the initial site, right? There's 5 or 6 of us that are solely focused on continuous improvement, right? We are the knowledge, the technical leads, we're all over it. But as you start to roll it out onto different sites, you hit a junction where you have to hire in more continuous improvement experts to lead those sites, and it grows and grows and grows. And before you know it, you've got a dedicated continuous improvement team of 20 odd people, which goes against the grain of what it's all about in the first place.
Yeah, it does.
And when you think about lean as a whole, lean is born on the fact of do more with less. And that's exactly what OpEx is allowing you to do. You don't need to grow more and more experts that come in and do it. You're growing your team, and this is the framework for it.
Precisely that. And it provides the guardrails, right, for how you do what you do. And of course, we've got a view in terms of what they are, and that comes out of the box, but it's completely flexible, right? So if you've got an organization that's maybe a bit more mature and they've got their ways of working for improvement, the tool flexes to allow that, but it just gives that scale and it gives the visibility. But you're right, just a reflection on your last point, because again, I've had this conversation many times over. Should improvement be driven by a central team versus local? And I think in the early days, it's really useful to have some dedicated expertise just to inject pace, the structure, the methodologies, how we're going to do all those things. But ultimately, you want the thinking, which is what this is all about, in every employee's mind, right? So that's the challenge. How do I get what I know into their mind? Yeah, they don't need to be as technically gifted as I've been doing this for 20 plus years, right? They don't need that, but they need to know, actually, that's a problem and I can do something about that. And this is the way I'll go about solving that problem so it doesn't reoccur ever again, right? So in simple terms, that's what we're trying to do. And we want everyone thinking like that. Yeah. So, that has to be the goal, having people solve their own problems. And yes, there are bigger, more complex things that you need an added layer of expertise for, but you can build those skills. You don't need thousands of these people across the business. You need small groups of them. And you need them talking and collaborating and learning from each other. So it was interesting. I was on a call with the global head of OpEx for a pharmaceutical firm earlier this week. And they're just moving to this model, and he calls it hub and spoke, which makes sense. So the central hub is the small group of experts, and they exist to create early momentum, to set the standards, to make sure that we're measuring the right things consistently, and to do that initial training and coaching. And then the spokes are all of the different sites and functions. They're the ones that will be accountable and responsible for improving their own work. So, over time, the hub will shrink to potentially nothing. I'm delighted to say they've taken OpEx. So that's going to control a lot of the things that the team might otherwise need to do, with people. And that's the approach. So, there's kind of like, I think there's no right and wrong answer, but for me, you've got to start with the end in mind. We're trying to build capability en masse. And how do we create a journey to get there rather than hiring more and more experts?
Yeah, I just don't think it's sustainable if you don't build it into the culture of the organisation.
Totally.
It was world-class manufacturing that we did when I first kicked it off. So you had the pillar leads, you had 10 or 11 technical pillar leads. And what was supposed to happen is they were supposed to be the people in the hub that had the technical knowledge of a particular area. So like workplace organisation or people development, logistics, something like that. And they were supposed to educate the rest of the business. But what actually happened is it became a standalone function where those pillar leads were the ones doing all the activity and all the work. They would swoop in like the SAS, smash windows as they went in, solve the problems for everybody, and then swing back out again as quickly as they arrived. Well, when you talk about respect for people, where's the respect for the people that have been doing that job for 15 years and knew it? We were going in there, telling them how to do it, and then disappearing off afterwards.
Exactly. And look, that does nothing for engagement, like you say. It does nothing for kind of the self-esteem of the people that have been facing the problems for however many years. But also it creates a bigger problem, that is reliance on this SWAT team.
Yeah.
And as soon as some of those people go, do you know what, I'm off to the next organization, it starts falling apart at the seams.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. The ones that were really engaged and really connected with continuous improvement grew their knowledge, got their badges, and then moved on to other organizations, and all the knowledge went with them.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is back to the operating system piece. Yeah. So, when people and organizations typically start improvement, they tick off some elements of the operating system. Yeah. So we need some people that know what they're doing, and we need them to spread some of the knowledge, and we need to deliver some value, i.e. some improvements and projects that show this is worth it. Sometimes they decide to measure the right things, but often they measure activity, not impact. So we've trained 1,000 people. Well, brilliant. What's that actually done?
Yeah. So what?
Right. And that's broadly as far as it goes, but actually what's the true operating system for improvement? So how do we spread capability en masse and make the skills that we teach appropriate for the layer in the organization?
Yeah.
So, your senior leaders, your execs, they need to understand how to set the right environment for this to flourish. What to say, but more importantly, what not to say. Yeah.
Yes.
How do they role model behaviors that send a real clear message that improvement is important and it's to be done in this way? So, there's a real targeted bit that you need to do up there. Right down on the front line, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's the confidence to go, we've got a problem and that's okay. How do I solve that in a structured way? And what if there's something that I don't know what to do? How do I then log that and escalate it, right? And then obviously you've got different levels in between. Frontline leaders need to put in place the ways of working within their teams to allow improvement to flourish. They need to coach, not, beat people with a stick if we've not hit the expectation today. Yeah. And then of course you've got your smaller group of sort of more technically minded improvement people that can support and coach. So you've got kind of like, for me, these 4 layers of skills, and you have to acknowledge that and understand how, as part of a CI operating system, you'll be able to target those. So, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And people think, when I did that at Royal Mail, we all became known as the yellow line people. Are they the world-class mail people? And we were like, yeah. Oh, you draw yellow lines on the floor. Because that's all they saw us do, was mark out things on the floor and then stick laminate sheets down showing what went in that box. The framework of world-class manufacturing was absolutely brilliant, but the execution at that time was so poor, and that's why it failed. And I think that's a pattern that lots of organisations have, and then their attitude is, well, we tried lean, but it didn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, I just got to do one thing. Sorry, I was looking for a little...
Please hold. Please hold. Please hold. Please hold.
A few moments later.
Joe, it's really interesting talking to you though, Chris, because I do feel the more I talk to you, the more I feel there's synergies between the experiences we've had. We've seen the same things. The background's really similar. I find you easy to connect with in that way, and I think other people will as well.
Yeah, look, I appreciate that. And, I told you about my journey at the start. I set off just wanting to kind of make my way, and the role I was in those early days, I just gave it 120%. I was comfortable. I didn't know where it was going. And I say this to my eldest because he's just turned 19 and he wants his career mapped out. And I said, look, it's not going to be like that, mate. Just keep working hard at what you're doing now and find out the things you enjoy and then pivot to that and then see where that takes you. Because I was I'm 44 now. So I was mid-20s before I realized actually what I wanted to do. And then I had a good go at it. And, I still don't know what the next few years will bring. So I just try and be open, honest, comfortable that I don't know what I'm doing and happy to share experiences where I messed things up and where I did things right.
Yeah. Do you not get a buzz out of not knowing what's next?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So, it's quite funny actually. So my colleagues would say, that I'm sort of very last minute, and that's my nature, and I had quite a bit of feedback over the recent years around actually that's not our style as well. So you need to, and I'm like, okay, fair enough.
I've had that feedback as well.
Yeah. So whenever we've got sort of, a leadership meeting or a board meeting, I'm quite comfortable with, I'm always prepared, but I'm happy doing that.
Yeah.
Fairly last minute. It's just the way I work. I get driven by that, whereas my colleagues are very different. Some of them are. Quite a few of them. So, I'm really comfortable with ambiguity.
It's that entrepreneurial mindset, isn't it? That I love not knowing what email is going to come in, what phone call is going to come through that day. Then things can change like that, and I love it.
And I think that's why I took to consulting, because every day is different, and I loved being dropped into a business, not having a clue who the people were, knowing that there would be a bit of a stigma attached with a consultant being hired, not knowing anything about their industry. I love that.
Yeah.
So I've got to make an impact from not the first month, the first hour. Bring it on. I've got to build relationships with the key people. And to do that, I've got to work out who they are and why they're key, and then go and meet with them all and build. I love that. I've got to learn so much about this business in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever the time frame is. I'm going to be playing back things to the people that have been there for 20, 30 years that they don't know, bring it on. Like, I
Yeah.
loved it. I mean, I don't do much of it anymore because my role's very different and I do miss it. So I get involved in certain bits and bobs but I'm not day-to-day consultant anymore. I work mainly with sort of, executive teams and that sort of thing. And when I support the Reinvig team. So I do miss that stuff, but
Yeah,
I get it in different ways because, growing 3 businesses that are different, but interrelated and all of the stuff that comes with that. So I'm getting my kicks out of that at the moment.
I didn't realize how much I missed it because obviously the more senior I got within Amazon, the further away I got from the going in and doing it. And it was only when I left and then started doing Ever So Lean that I suddenly realized this is what I miss. Like, this is brilliant, getting in there and amongst it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, talking of getting in there and amongst it, I can't let you go without putting you through. It sounds really bad. Without you having a go at the yes/no game.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a number of questions at you over a 1 minute period, and all you need to do is not say yes or no or a variance of yes. You can't go mm-hmm or uh-huh. You just can't do any of them, all right?
I'm ready.
Right, here we go. It's the yes/no game for Chris Dando. Chris, is Cardiff the capital city of Wales?
I believe it is.
Does Wales have its own national flag?
It does indeed.
Is Snowdon the highest mountain in Wales?
It's a very tall mountain, which is the highest in Wales.
Okay, what is the Welsh name for Wales?
Cymru.
It's what?
Cymru.
Cymru. Did I say it right? Cymru.
Cymru.
Am I saying it right?
You've learned Welsh before, Matt.
No,
Said
it's
it
too
very
long.
well.
I can't read words that long. Is the Welsh dragon green?
It isn't.
Do dragons really exist?
Apparently, according to some books, they really exist, but I'm not so sure.
Can you drive from England into Wales without going through passport control?
Previously, you needed to show your passport. Only a joke.
Well done, mate. You did it. Do you know, I'm losing my touch. I haven't got anyone out for about 5 episodes now.
Oh, okay.
It's not
Yeah,
happening.
I mean, I was ready for it, so
You were good. You were really good. You was on it. Your tactics seem to be just waffle for a while to fill the gap to the
and
time
just try and
goes.
repeat some of the things that you said. And here's the thing, right? As a consultant, you think on your feet. So
Yes, that's a good point.
yeah. I'm used to kind of saying things while my mind is going, what do I want to say here?
Very good. A couple of things before you disappear. Firstly, where can people go to find more about you as an individual?
So my LinkedIn profile, search Chris Dando, you will see me there. I'm doing quite a bit on LinkedIn at the moment, just sharing some of the experiences that we've talked about today. So get involved in the conversation. I'd love to do that.
Brilliant. And the other one is around OPEX. Where can people go to find out more about OPEX?
OPEX.io.
Easy as that.
Simple.
Awesome. Super simple. Right. Thanks so much, Chris. It's been absolutely awesome having you on. Thank you.
Matt, I've really enjoyed it. I appreciate the opportunity to come and chat to you.
No, you're very welcome. Take care.
I will see you in Manchester.
Yes, in Manchester. I'm going to have my jabs and I'll get up to Manchester.
Brilliant. All right, mate. Lovely to see you.
And you.
Take care.
Some key takeaways then from today's brilliant discussion with Chris Dando. Now, I really enjoyed this chat. I felt like there were so many synergies between Chris and I think many people who are watching or listening to this right now who have worked in the continuous improvement space for any period of time would have been able to relate to so much of what Chris spoke about. Now, the first one that really strikes true for me is that we cannot force lean into an organization. You have to understand your own unique problems. You have to understand the environment and the people that work within that organization. There is no one size fits all. You can't just lift something from another organization and drop it in. It's very unlikely to work. And that's because everybody is different. And you'll have your own unique culture that you need to make your lean culture build upon. And if you try and take somebody else's, it's very unlikely to end with the result that you're looking for. The second one has to be about scaling improvement. Now, this is the hardest bit of continuous improvement. It can be relatively easy to get a small, quick win in a small, isolated area or on an isolated project. But when you start to roll it out, especially if you've got multiple sites or locations and you're rolling it across them all, that can be a real challenge. Now, Chris and I both spoke at length about how we've worked with and for organisations who have hired experts in to lead this process. And what ends up happening in that environment is it tends to become a support function program, a continuous improvement team that does all of the continuous improvement. And that's not what it's all about. A, that is very difficult to scale and it's very expensive. And B, it completely defeats the object of what continuous improvement is all about. It should come from your people. It should be from your people for your people. They should be able to solve problems themselves. And that's how you create the culture of continuous improvement. If you've got a designated team that's working in that space all the time, you're not going to get that. Now, Chris made a really valuable point. He said that at the beginning, it can be worthwhile having experts come in and help you set it up. And he's got a good point, because it really does give you a font of knowledge within the organisation. And if you get somebody who's experienced and done it elsewhere, they may have come across many of the pitfalls that they can avoid this time round for you. But it is a short-term fix. There is no shortcut around getting this into the fabric of your organisation through your people. The next one that I think we should really look at is about building the capability over dependency. So what I mean by this is we want your people to gain the knowledge. They should become capable problem solvers who can solve their own problems. What you don't want is if you bring in a consultant or somebody to support you, you shouldn't be dependent upon them or any expert within your team to continue continuous improvement. It must be something that everybody's able to do. So you need to find a way within your culture of growing that knowledge and spreading it amongst everybody, not keeping it isolated to one small area. Now, I've worked in organizations where it's all been about activity. How many Kaizen events have we done? How many ideas have we had generated? Now, these are activity metrics. They're not measuring the actual impact of what you do, because you could have 1 million ideas that have come in, but if none of them have been implemented, so what? What's the point? It doesn't mean anything, does it? So it's really important that we measure impact, because it can be very, very easy to slip into that trap of measuring just the activity rather than the impact itself. Sometimes it's the execution that fails. In fact, I'd go as far to say, as I've never seen lean fail. It's proven it works. Okay, it definitely works. There are process wastes in every single industry, in every single business, and every single process. Now, where this falls apart and tends not to stick and last the test of time is where we cheat, if you like, and we don't deploy it properly. We try and cut corners. We try to speed things up rather than creating that organic growth. That's the really important part of continuous improvement. It has to be all about people. I remember having a conversation with Paul Akers on a previous episode, years ago now, and Paul said to me, Matt, he goes, if you're doing lean for any other reason than to improve the life for your people and your customers, you may as well stop now because it won't work. And I tell you what, that's an incredibly true statement.
The Eversaline podcast is researched, produced and recorded by Matt Sims. Visit eversaline.com to find out more.